Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract healthy, fulfilling relationships, while others, maybe even you, keep ending up in toxic patterns or endless cycles of disappointment? It's not luck, and it's not that they're more attractive or smarter than you. It's psychology. The truth is, most of us were never taught how to love or how to be loved. We picked up patterns from our childhood, from broken examples, from movies that romanticized chaos. And now, those patterns are running our love lives on autopilot. But there's a way to break free. There's a model in psychology that completely reframes the way you think about love, attraction, and connection. It's not about manipulating someone, and it's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding the drivers behind every emotional bond, and then using that knowledge to create the love life you actually want, not the one you keep settling for. Today, I'm going to walk you through this model and how it can transform your love life forever. If you apply this, you won't just attract someone, you'll attract the right person in a way that feels natural, authentic, and deeply secure. When we talk about love and attraction, most people think it's about chemistry, timing, or finding the one. But there's something far more powerful shaping your love life, and it's been operating silently in the background since the day you were born. It's what psychologists call your attachment system, but let's strip away the jargon and talk about what it really means for you. At its core, your attachment blueprint is the script you unconsciously follow when it comes to love, who you choose, how you behave, and even what you believe you deserve. And here's the part that might sting a little. If you've been repeating the same painful patterns in your relationships, if you've been falling for the same kind of people and ending up heartbroken, it's not bad luck. It's this blueprint running the show. Think about it like this. When you were a child, you didn't just learn how to walk and talk, you learned how to connect. Every interaction you had with your caregivers was teaching your nervous system what love feels like, how safe it is, and whether or not you could rely on it. If the people who were supposed to make you feel safe and loved were consistent, nurturing, and emotionally available, your brain recorded, "Love is safe, love is dependable, I can trust it." That became your template. But if love felt unpredictable, if one day you were embraced and the next day ignored, you learned something different. You learned love is inconsistent. I need to work hard for it. If I don't fight for it, it will disappear. And if love felt overwhelming or even dangerous, if the people closest to you were critical, distant, or explosive, you learned love is risky. I need to keep my guard up. I can't let anyone too close. Fast forward to adulthood, and these early lessons don't just vanish. They live in your nervous system. They shape your instincts, your attractions, your behaviors in ways you might not even realize. Ever wonder why you're drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable? Or why you start feeling anxious when someone doesn't text you back right away? Or why you pull away the moment someone starts to get too close? That's not you being crazy. That's your attachment blueprint trying to protect you the only way it knows how. Let's take an example. Imagine you grew up with love that was inconsistent. Sometimes your parent was warm and attentive, and other times they were distracted or withdrawn. What did that teach your system? That love is something you have to earn. So as an adult, when someone shows you mixed signals, sometimes they're affectionate, sometimes they disappear, you feel a surge of attraction. Why? Because your nervous system says, this feels familiar, this is love, and then you find yourself chasing. You overgive, you ignore red flags, you tell yourself, if I just love them harder, they'll stay. But deep down, you're not chasing them. You're chasing the feeling you had as a child when you longed for consistency and didn't get it. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe love felt suffocating when you were young. Maybe you had a parent who was overbearing, controlling, or critical. So now, when someone gets too close, when they want to know your every thought, when they expect emotional intimacy, you feel smothered. You start to pull away, not because you don't like them, but because closeness feels like danger to your system. You crave independence, you crave space, and deep down you fear that if you let someone in completely, you'll lose yourself. So what do? You keep people at arm's length. You choose partners who are unavailable because it feels safer. You convince yourself, I'm just independent, I don't need anyone. But the truth is, part of you desperately wants love. You just learn to protect yourself by avoiding it. Here's the thing most people don't realize. None of these patterns are who you are. They're strategies your nervous system adopted to keep you safe. And back then, they worked. They helped you survive a world where love wasn't always safe or consistent. But now, they're sabotaging the very thing you want most. Because the truth is, love today doesn't have to feel like it did back then. You're not that helpless child anymore. You have choices now. You have the ability to rewire that blueprint and create a new one. But before we talk about how, you have to understand this. Awareness is everything. The moment you realize that your attractions, your impulses, your anxieties in relationships aren't random, that they're wired patterns, you take back your power. You stop saying, why do I always fall for the wrong people? And you start saying, my system is looking for familiarity, not happiness. Because here's the hard truth, familiarity feels safe even when it's unhealthy. If chaos was your normal growing up, calm might feel boring now. If inconsistency was your normal, stability might feel suspicious. That's why so many people sabotage healthy love. They're not used to it. Their system is screaming, something's off, where's the drama, where's the chase? And if you're not aware of that, you'll mistake peace for a lack of passion. So what do? You start by getting curious about your patterns. Notice who you're attracted to and why. Notice how you behave when you feel someone pulling away. Do you cling tighter? Do you shut down? Notice how you feel when someone is genuinely consistent and loving. Does it feel warm or does it make you uncomfortable? These are clues. They tell you where your blueprint is leading you. Once you see the pattern, the next step is to question it. Ask yourself, does this pattern serve me? Does it lead to the love I want, or does it lead to pain? Because awareness without action changes nothing. If your nervous system is wired to chase unavailability, you have to interrupt that pattern. That means making new choices that might feel uncomfortable at first because they go against your old programming. It might mean saying no to the person who gives you butterflies, but can't give you consistency. It might mean saying yes to the person who feels steady, even if they don't set off fireworks in your chest on day one. And here's something important. Rewiring your attachment blueprint isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to who you were before the world taught you to protect yourself at the cost of intimacy. It's about creating safety inside yourself so you no longer need chaos to feel alive. It's about teaching your nervous system that stability is exciting, that respect is sexy, that love doesn't have to hurt. And that's not something that happens overnight. It's a process, a series of small intentional choices that signal to your brain, we're doing things differently now. For example, let's say your old pattern is to text someone immediately when you feel them pulling away because you're terrified of losing them. The new pattern, pause, breathe, remind yourself, their distance doesn't define my worth. That pause is powerful. It tells your nervous system, we're safe, we don't need to chase. Over time, those pauses become your new normal. Or maybe your old pattern is to shut down when someone tries to get close, the new pattern. Lean in a little, share something small, let them in even if it feels uncomfortable. Every time you do that, you're teaching your system that intimacy isn't danger, it's connection. And here's the most beautiful part. When you change your blueprint, everything changes. Your attractions shift. The people who once excited you, the ones who kept you guessing, who triggered your anxiety, they stop appealing to you. You look at them and think, that's not love, that's chaos. And the people who value you, who make you feel seen and safe, they become magnetic. Not because they changed, but because you did. You raised your internal standard. You decided that love should feel secure, not stressful, and that decision rewired your life. The truth is, you deserve a love that feels like home, not a battlefield. You deserve a love where you can exhale, where you're not constantly wondering if you're enough, where you're not performing for affection. And that love starts with this: understanding your blueprint, questioning it, and choosing differently. Because the moment you do, you stop repeating the past, you stop letting old wounds dictate your future, and you start building a love story that actually feels good, not just familiar. When it comes to love, most of us walk into relationships thinking that attraction and chemistry will take care of everything. We assume that if the spark is strong enough, everything else will fall into place. But here's the truth no one tells you: sparks fade. Chemistry, as intoxicating as it is, doesn't sustain love. What sustains love? What makes it grow instead of die is understanding and meeting emotional needs. That's the part no one taught us, and it's why so many relationships fail even when two people genuinely care for each other. The truth is, every single one of us has emotional needs. Needs for connection, for security, for affection, for validation. But most people don't even know what their needs are. They've spent so long ignoring them or trying to suppress them because someone somewhere told them that having needs makes you needy or weak. And so they walk around disconnected from their own hearts, hoping someone will just magically know what they want and give it to them. And when that doesn't happen, resentment builds, misunderstandings pile up, and love starts to feel heavy, complicated, and disappointing. So let's strip this down. What do we really need? What makes us feel loved? Because love isn't just a word or a gesture. It's a feeling, and that feeling comes when certain needs are met. Psychologists have studied this for decades, and while the language varies, it all comes back to two core human needs: certainty and significance. Certainty is that deep sense of safety in the relationship. It's knowing where you stand. It's feeling like you can trust this person not just today but tomorrow and the day after that. It's the absence of constant anxiety, the quiet knowing, they're here, they've got me, I don't have to fight for their attention or wonder if they'll disappear. Without certainty, love feels like chaos. You're always guessing, always chasing, always questioning, and you can't build anything stable on a foundation of doubt. The second core need is significance. This is about feeling valued, cherished, and seen in a way that feels unique. It's that sense of I matter to them in a way no one else does. Because here's the truth: you can have someone who's consistent, who shows up every day, but if they treat you like you're replaceable, if you feel like just another option on their list, that relationship will starve your soul. Significance is what turns routine into romance. It's what keeps love alive beyond the daily grind. It's hearing "you're the one I choose," not just in words but in actions, over and over again. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Most people are out here trying to get their needs met without even knowing what they are. They confuse attention for certainty, drama for significance, and sex for intimacy. They settle for breadcrumbs because they don't know what a full meal looks like. They think, well, at least he texts me every day, or at least she tells me I'm attractive sometimes, and they ignore the bigger picture. Does this relationship make me feel safe? Does it make me feel valued, or am I constantly trying to prove myself just to earn scraps of affection? And this is why so many people end up chasing the wrong thing. They confuse excitement with security. They think if they can just get that unavailable person to choose them, they'll finally feel significant. They think if they can just keep someone interested, they'll feel safe. But here's the problem: when your emotional needs aren't met, you start negotiating with your own worth. You start shrinking your standards just to keep someone around. You start working overtime in the relationship, trying to do more, give more, love more, hoping that maybe finally they'll see you, and in the process you lose yourself. But here's the good news: the moment you understand your needs and own them without shame, everything changes. You stop settling for breadcrumbs because you know what real nourishment looks like. You stop playing games because you're no longer trying to manipulate someone into meeting needs they have no intention of meeting. Instead, you become crystal clear about what matters to you: consistency, honesty, respect, effort. And when you meet someone, you're not evaluating them based on how good they look or how much they can distract you from your loneliness. You're asking, can they meet my core needs? Can I meet theirs? Is this relationship built for longevity, not just for thrills? And let's talk about this idea of communicating your needs, because this is where a lot of people struggle. They think expressing their needs makes them too much. They worry that if they say, "I need more consistency," the other person will leave. So instead, they stay silent. They pretend they're fine when they're not. And then they explode later, or they start pulling away, or they start testing the other person in passive-aggressive ways. That's not strength. That's fear in disguise. Real strength is being able to say, "This is what I need to feel loved and secure. If you can't give that, that's okay. But I can't stay in a relationship that starves me. That's not a demand. That's a standard." And here's what happens when you start honoring your emotional needs. The wrong people fall away. The people who were only there for the convenience, for the ego boost, for the casual attention, they disappear. And yes, that might feel lonely at first. It might feel like you're losing everything, but you're not. You're clearing space for someone who can actually meet you where you are. Someone who doesn't see your needs as a burden, but as a guide to loving you better. And let's not forget, this isn't just about you getting your needs met. It's also about you meeting theirs. Relationships are a two-way street. If you want certainty, you have to offer it. If you want significance, you have to give it. Not from a place of desperation, not as a transaction, but as a reflection of your love and integrity. Because when two people show up with that level of clarity and generosity, love becomes effortless. Not because it's always easy, but because it's rooted in something real. Now, some people might be thinking, but what if my needs are too much? What if I'm asking for more than anyone can give? Let me tell you something. Your needs are not too much. They're human. The problem isn't that you have needs. The problem is that you've been trying to get them met by people who are unwilling or incapable of meeting them. That's like trying to grow a garden in concrete. It's not going to happen, no matter how much you water it. So stop asking the wrong soil to nourish you. Find a place where your roots can actually thrive. And here's the kicker. The moment you start meeting your own needs first, when you give yourself certainty and significance, you become magnetic. You stop showing up desperate for validation because you already validate yourself. You stop clinging to people who breadcrumb you because you already know you're worthy of the whole loaf. And from that place, you attract partners who are whole, who aren't looking for someone to fix them or complete them, but who want to build something extraordinary with you. Because that's what real love is. It's two people who know their worth, who honor their needs, and who commit to meeting each other in the middle, not from a place of lack, but from a place of abundance. It's not about finding someone who makes you feel complete. It's about finding someone who amplifies the completeness you already have, and that starts with understanding your emotional needs and refusing to settle for anything less than what truly feeds your soul. So, if you take nothing else from this, take this. Stop apologizing for having needs. Stop hiding them, shrinking them, or pretending you don't care. Own them, speak them, stand by them, because the love you want, the deep soul-level connection you crave, doesn't happen by accident. It happens when two people choose to meet each other's needs with love, with consistency, and with effort. That's not luck, that's intention, and it's yours the moment you decide you deserve it. If there's one truth about love that most people overlook, it's this: your relationships are a mirror. They reflect back the story you tell yourself about who you are and what you deserve. That's what the self-concept principle is all about. And when you understand this, it changes everything, because the hardest pill to swallow is this: you're not just attracting what you want, you're attracting what you believe you're worthy of. And if you keep finding yourself in relationships that make you feel small, undervalued, or unappreciated, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because on some deep, often unconscious level, you've normalized that treatment. You've told yourself, this is what love feels like. Most people don't even realize how much their identity drives their love life. If deep down you believe you're not enough, if you've internalized the message that you're too much or not worthy, you'll pick partners who confirm that belief. Not because you enjoy pain, but because it feels familiar. Familiar feels safe, even when it's toxic. So what happens? You meet someone who treats you with real respect, who sees your value, who doesn't make you question where you stand. And instead of leaning into that, you feel bored. You tell yourself the spark isn't there, but the truth is the spark is there. It just doesn't feel like chaos, and your nervous system doesn't know what to do with that calm. This is why self-concept is so critical. Because when you think about it, your entire romantic life is filtered through the lens of how you see yourself. It shapes who you choose, what you tolerate, and how you show up. If your self-concept is rooted in scarcity, if you think, I'm lucky if someone wants me, you'll accept behavior that falls below your standards because you're afraid of losing the little you think you can get. You'll settle for being someone's option instead of their priority. You'll silence your needs because you're terrified of being too much. And you'll call that compromise, when in reality it's self-abandonment. But imagine this for a second. Imagine if you believed, truly believed, that you are enough, that your worth isn't negotiable, that you bring something to the table no one else can replicate. How would you date then? How would you show up in relationships? You wouldn't chase. You wouldn't beg for attention. You wouldn't cling to someone who's half in and half out, because you'd know, if you can't meet me where I am, that's your loss, not mine. That's the power of self-concept. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's knowing your value so deeply that you'd rather be alone than in a relationship that makes you question it. But here's where people get stuck. They think self-worth is a feeling that magically appears. It's not. It's a muscle you build. It's the result of choices you make every single day. Every time you enforce a boundary, you strengthen it. Every time you walk away from someone who treats you poorly, you strengthen it. Every time you choose your peace over someone else's approval, you strengthen it. And over time, those choices create a new identity. Someone who doesn't just hope for love, but expects the kind of love that honors who they are. Let's talk about boundaries for a second, because they are the ultimate reflection of self-concept. People with low self-worth struggle to set them because they fear losing people. They think, if I say no, they'll leave, and maybe they will. But that's not rejection, that's alignment. That's the wrong person filtering out of your life so the right one can enter. The person who's meant for you won't see your boundaries as an obstacle. They'll see them as a roadmap to love you better. But you only attract those people when you hold the line, and holding the line starts with believing you're worth protecting. Another part of this is understanding that how you speak to yourself sets the tone for how others treat you. If your inner dialogue is full of criticism, I'm not attractive enough, smart enough, interesting enough, you'll unconsciously seek out relationships that reinforce those beliefs. You'll ignore red flags because deep down you think, this is the best I can do. But the moment you change that dialogue, the moment you start saying, I am worthy of a love that respects me, cherishes me, and chooses me consistently, your standards shift. And when your standards shift, your entire dating pool changes. People who can't rise to meet you, they won't even make it past the first conversation because you'll feel the misalignment immediately. Now, some people hear this and think, so you're saying if I just love myself more, everything will magically fall into place, and not exactly. This isn't about perfection, it's about congruence. When your inner world aligns with the love you want to experience, you stop working against yourself. You stop sabotaging good relationships because they feel unfamiliar. You stop chasing bad ones because they feel like home. Instead, you start making choices that reflect your worth, and those choices compound into a radically different love life. Here's something else most people don't realize. The energy you bring into dating is everything. If you show up thinking, "I hope they like me," you give away all your power. You put yourself in the position of being evaluated instead of being an equal participant. But when you show up thinking, "Let's see if we're a fit," everything changes. You're no longer auditioning, you're collaborating, you're not trying to prove your value, you're observing if this person adds value to your life. That shift alone is the difference between desperation and confidence, between chasing and choosing. And let's be real, confidence isn't about being the loudest person in the room or pretending you don't care. It's about quiet certainty. It's about knowing I don't need to settle because what I bring to the table is rare, and the right person will see that without me having to beg. And that certainty doesn't come from external validation. It comes from keeping promises to yourself, from doing the work on your goals, your health, your passions, from building a life you love so much that a relationship becomes an addition, not a lifeline. Because here's the harsh truth, if you make someone your entire world, you will always fear losing them. But when you are your own world, you date from a place of choice, not survival. So how do you start changing your self-concept? Start by noticing where you've been outsourcing your worth. Do you feel good only when someone texts you back? Do you spiral when someone pulls away? That's a sign you've made your value conditional on their behavior. And the way out is to reclaim that power, set standards for how you want to be treated, and enforce them, not with anger, not with ultimatums, but with quiet resolve. If you can't meet this, I can't stay. Every time you do that, you're rewriting your identity. You're teaching yourself, I don't have to beg for love. I don't have to lower my standards to keep someone. I am enough as I am. And here's the beautiful irony. The moment you start living that truth, you become even more attractive. Because nothing is more magnetic than someone who knows their worth and isn't afraid to stand by it, not in a performative way, not in a "look how confident I am" way, but in that calm, grounded way that says, "I am whole, I am complete, I want you, but I don't need you." That's the energy that makes healthy love possible. Because the healthiest relationships are two whole people choosing each other, not two broken people clinging to each other for survival. At the end of the day, your love life will rise or fall to the level of your self-concept. You can do all the dating hacks in the world, you can learn every text, back strategy, every attraction trick, but if deep down you believe you're not enough, you'll sabotage every good thing that comes your way, or you'll settle for things that break you. So stop focusing on who's out there and start focusing on who you are in here. Because the day you decide, truly decide, that you are enough is the day your entire love life transforms. Not because you found the right person, but because you became the person who would never settle for less than they deserve. If there's one truth that separates relationships that thrive from those that crumble, it's this: love cannot stay the same. It's not meant to. We have this fairy tale idea that love is supposed to be a straight line. Meet the right person, fall in love, and then just coast. But real love doesn't work like that. Love is a living thing. It needs care, it needs attention, and most importantly, it needs growth. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. That's true in life, and it's true in relationships. The problem is, most people enter a relationship thinking the work ends once they find someone. They think the biggest challenge is finding the right person, so when they do, they relax. They stop putting in effort. They stop showing curiosity. They stop learning about themselves and their partner. And slowly, without even noticing, what once felt exciting becomes predictable, what once felt passionate becomes routine, and what once felt safe becomes suffocating. Not because the love disappeared, but because the relationship stopped evolving. Here's the harsh truth. The person you're with today is not the same person they'll be 5 years from now, and neither are you. You'll both go through experiences that shape you, dreams that shift, and challenges that change how you see the world. If your relationship isn't designed to adapt to those changes, it will eventually break under the weight of them. That's why the growth equation is so powerful. It says that for love to last, both people need to be committed not just to each other, but to their own growth and to the growth of the relationship itself. But let's be real, growth isn't always comfortable. In fact, it often feels like the opposite. Growth requires vulnerability. It requires admitting I don't have it all figured out. It requires being open to feedback without getting defensive. It means facing parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. The insecurities, the fears, the habits that sabotage connection. And for a lot of people, that's terrifying. So instead of growing, they stay stuck. They cling to old patterns because change feels scary, even if those patterns are hurting the relationship. Think about conflict, for example. Most couples fight. That's normal. But whether a fight becomes a wedge or a bridge depends on whether both people are willing to grow through it. Growth means instead of saying, "You always do this," you say, "Here's how that made me feel, and here's what I need moving forward." Growth means you stop making everything about winning and start making it about understanding. That sounds simple, but it's not. It takes emotional maturity. It takes the ability to put your ego aside and prioritize the relationship over being right. And that level of growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens because both people are intentional about it. But growth isn't just about resolving problems. It's about creating a shared vision for the future. Because here's the truth, if you don't grow together, you grow apart. That doesn't mean you have to have the same dreams or interests. It means you have to support each other's evolution. It means when your partner decides to start a business, you don't roll your eyes and say, "That's stupid." You lean in, you ask questions, you cheer them on. And you expect the same in return. Because nothing kills a relationship faster than feeling like the person who's supposed to love you most doesn't believe in you. And here's the part most people miss. Growth in a relationship starts with individual growth. You can't expect the relationship to thrive if you're neglecting yourself. If you've lost your sense of identity, if you've abandoned your passions, if you've stopped challenging yourself to be better, you're putting all the pressure on the relationship to make you happy. And that's a weight no partner can carry. The strongest relationships are two people who are fulfilled on their own and choose to build a life together. Not because they need each other to feel whole, but because they want to amplify each other's wholeness. So how do you create a relationship that grows instead of decays? First, you commit to curiosity. Curiosity is the antidote to complacency. When you stop being curious about your partner, when you assume you know everything about them, you stop truly seeing them. But people are always evolving. Their dreams change, their fears change, their needs change. So keep asking questions. Keep learning who they are becoming, not just who they were when you met. Second, you invest in experiences together. Shared experiences create shared meaning. They pull you out of the monotony of routine and remind you why you fell in love in the first place. And perhaps most importantly, you make growth a non-negotiable. That means if you see yourself stuck in old patterns, avoiding hard conversations, running from conflict, prioritizing comfort over connection, you call it out. You challenge yourself to do better, even when it's hard. And you expect your partner to do the same, not because you're trying to change them, but because you know love can't stay healthy without progress. The reality is, the best relationships aren't the ones that never struggle. They're the ones where both people say, we're going to face the struggle and we're going to come out stronger on the other side. That's what builds trust. That's what deepens intimacy. That's what creates a bond that lasts decades, not just months. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Passion fades if you don't feed it, and the way you feed it isn't by chasing novelty outside the relationship. It's by creating novelty within it through growth. Growth isn't just what keeps love alive. It's what makes love extraordinary. It's what transforms a relationship from something that meets your needs to something that inspires you, to something that challenges you to become the best version of yourself. And when you find someone who's willing to grow with you, hold on to that, because that's rare. That's what turns ordinary love into a partnership that lasts a lifetime. And if you take nothing else from this, take this: don't settle for someone who doesn't want to grow. Don't settle for someone who thinks love should be easy and effortless forever. Because the reality is, real love takes work, but the right kind of work. Not work that drains you, not work that makes you lose yourself, but work that expands you. Work that makes you better, work that makes you look at each other after years and say, we've been through so much and we're still here, not because it was always easy, but because we chose to grow instead of give up. That's the kind of love that lasts. That's the kind of love worth waiting for, and that's the kind of love you deserve. If you take nothing else from today, take this: love isn't just a feeling, it's a psychological system, a combination of attachment, needs, identity, and growth. When you understand this model and apply it, you stop being a passive participant in your love life. You stop settling for patterns that hurt you, and you start building something extraordinary, something that lasts. Because real love isn't about luck. It's about clarity, courage, and conscious choice.